Hi everyone, welcome to episode 2 of The Perfect Storm, in which we explain about the Singaporean property market, why it's rising since July 2020 last year, why it will continue rising, and when it could actually stop. So in episode 1, we actually spoke about COVID, about how COVID caused this worldwide supply pressure in the fact where construction materials cannot have roughly doubled in prices due to bottlenecks. Shipping tripled in prices, hence they cannot deliver on time or in an economical manner. How workers cannot come in. So all these result in a short to medium term supply shortage in Singapore, a bottleneck in Singapore that basically projects are not able to finish on time, right? Today, we're actually talking about short-term factor, short-term FOMO, fear of missing out, on how that created a spark in demand that became a vicious cycle all the way to today, right? In fact, 2 cycles of this short-term FOMO has already occurred since July last year. And today, I'm going to talk about more in detail about them, starting with these 4 factors. Firstly, we had a circuit breaker that happened in March to June 2020 last year that compressed 3 prime months of demand into July and August last year, creating this wave of demand that was higher than usual and resulted in a lot of media coverage. The developers in Singapore then used that very same media coverage to stagger their property launches to meet this demand. They did not release it all at one go. They also used the media to their advantage by releasing them one by one. When you stagger your launches like this, when you only release a little bit of supply to catch on this massive demand every single month, every piece of supply that is released can be released at a higher price, and the take-up rate will be even higher than the one before. The third factor would be that caused all this short-term fear would be government support and the backfiring media coverage. This comes because the government is trying to do multiple things to tackle this COVID crisis. And as such, their media coverage, when they use the media to announce their policies, it had a very differing effect from the developer whose sole purpose is to maximize profits for their property developments. The government is trying to save jobs, save the economy, take care of people, make sure people are not dying, and they're also trying to calm down the property market. That created a very convoluted media strategy for them that actually caused property market to rise up even faster than they expected. Lastly, the short-term factors also caused too much cash to flood the market, ensuring that the cycle can continue once, twice, thrice, or even more. So the very first one, when we look at 2019, which is a regular year for property, you start seeing that a typical condo resale volume, it's about 750 to 780 units here, right? December, January, it may drop a little because people go on holidays. But back in March, it's a normal month already, right? Before COVID hit Singapore's shores. However, when a circuit breaker was announced for April, May, and June, sales dropped dramatically, more than 50%, to about 300 units in April, less than 250 in May. And finally, in June, it started rebounding a little due to the delays that buyers have received for their BTOs, for their ECs, their new launches. They're allowed to delay by a year or more, resulting in a lot of them switching to buy resale in June. And in July, when people can finally see the units for themselves, sales skyrocketed even more than pre-COVID era, which is why the dip in prices sort of ended in May. And in June, the property prices have already rebounded and has gone up ever since. This cycle actually continued all the way. I know I didn't have the data to push all the way to 2021, but sales for every month since July 2020 has been around 1,000 plus units and never ended since then, with the exception of 1 or 2 months. This is actually caused, number one, sudden release of all this buying pressure from April, May, and June into July, causing a lot of headlines saying that how resale prices have increased, how resale listings have dropped, how new launch prices have been increasing and take-up rate has been increasing. And the developers, their business being in property, have been quick to catch on onto this, and they have further used the media to their advantage. So for example, the link at Beauty World sold 96% on the first day of launch in November. You notice that UOL then launched Clavon, another developer. UOL then launched Clavon in December, having a fantastic take-up rate as well. On one weekend, 70% sold, record PSF for them as well. So you start noticing that they did not release all in the same month. They took turns to release, and basically, I'm not saying they are colluding, but they are really, really clever. So what they did was, if they see their competitor launching this month, they would simply call for a media press conference saying that they will launch it next month. So in order to let all the other developers know that they're launching next month, to not clash with them. And should the previous launch continue to be fantastic, right? You release only a little bit of supply to fit this massive demand, this pent-up demand. You continue to generate media coverage month after month of fantastic take-up rates because you're releasing so little supply every month, right? So buyers are just desperate to grab any unit they can, willing to pay higher and higher prices, which results in all these launches doing fantastically well. The government, on the other hand, tried using the media as well. However, to much less effect, because the government is made of many different departments trying to achieve many different goals during COVID. They are trying to save jobs. So you start seeing stuff like borrowers getting more time to repay loans. For example, in 2020, you can choose not to pay any of your installments and not be evicted by the banks. You start receiving generous salary subsidies if you're in certain industries. So the poor, the broke need not sell their houses, reducing supply even further, short term. And buyers are not silly, right? Because buyers are able to see these are news headlines. These are actually page 1, page 2 of the news nowadays. And it's actually quite hard to miss these headlines. They are also able to understand that, hey, people who are desperate nowadays, they did not have to sell anymore. On the other hand, right, they are also trying to pacify BTO buyers, EC buyers, those who have bought directly from the government, that they're going to receive 2 years, 3 years delays, right? So they are allowed to cancel their BTO application without any penalties. So when you start telling me that, hey, every month you start seeing that resale prices climbing up, like record $82 million HDB flats sold in 2020, right? In 2021, in fact, there's 200 plus already, on the way to $200 plus million flats. So you start seeing all these newspaper articles coming up, news headlines coming up on your handphone, on your tablet, on your computer, newspapers, whatever. You start noticing that the poor need not sell. You know that supply is shrinking. Hey, you start seeing that BTOs, ECs having delays, so supply is shrinking. You start seeing, hey, record $1 million flats. Oh, record sales in this new launch. Hey, record PSF for this new launch, for this new EC. You'll start worrying if you're one of these BTO applicants, you're one of these EC applicants, and now the government is giving you this opportunity to cancel without any penalties. Will you take it? Most people would take it because that would mean that I have to quickly enter the market to get a roof over my head in a reasonable amount of time, or I just have to wait out on my BTO for that delay, whatever it is. So most people actually choose to take the option of buying that new launch, that resale, that whatever it is outside, in order to secure a roof over their head in a reasonable amount of time, if they can afford it, right? The question is if they can afford it. So what happens is that this pushed the property market higher than expected, together with that sudden release in the buying pressure in July 2020, right? That was the first cycle. So in order to come down this first cycle, the government tried to calm down fears that there are not enough units on the market, supply is not enough, prices are increasing. They try to calm down people by releasing these news articles saying that there'll be a record-breaking 50,000 plus flats reaching their MOP, means they are available for sale, 2020 and 2021. However, this does not make a lot of sense to me because they're telling me that there's record 50,000 plus flats. So these 50,000 plus flats, not necessarily all would sell in normal times. However, if I'm seeing that property market is doing fantastically well, and then my BTO instead of getting $100,000 profit, I can get $160,000 profit. I will be tempted to sell, right? And I have bought this particular place with my wife or my husband or whatever, it's usually bought together as a couple, right? And two names were used to purchase one flat. Now, these 50,000 plus flats are able to get record prices because there's an acute lack of supply in the market, and now there's increasing demand. I'm able to sell my flat at a good price. I will sell it. I will split the names. I'll buy one condo myself. I'll use my spouse's name to buy another condo myself to tap on this rising market, right? And instead of providing 50,000 plus new units on the market to elevate supply, you're actually increasing more demand because these 50,000 plus flats are homes to these 50,000 plus families, right? When they sell these flats, the whole pie is still the same. The whole pie is still the same. So these 50,000 plus people, if they all sold their flats tomorrow, they still need 50,000 plus new units to come onto the market so that they have a place to stay. So supply never increased. In fact, demand could potentially increase 50 plus thousand. And this amount is not even a proper full story because it conveniently ignores that 6,000 to 8,000 units of EC that is hitting the MOP this year and last year as well. So demand has been increasing, supply has been decreasing. Whatever news that the government released, in fact, created more pressure on the ground in terms of both supply and demand. And the other actors on the stage, like the developers, have in fact used the media, releasing supply slowly one by one to capture the maximum price and the maximum take-up rate. This pushed the cycle faster and faster to all-time high for the record PSFs for the houses. However, there's still the most critical question about where the cash can come from, because in Singapore, let's say even if I gain a record amount of money from my BTO sales, my EC sales, I still need to put a down payment for my next house, right? The problem is that we actually have too much cash in Singapore, right? So this cycle needs cash to continue. Where is the cash coming from? Number one, as mentioned just now, I currently stay in the BTO. I can sell it off for a record price. That's number one. Using my profits to plow to the next purchase, number one. Number two, right? Property prices have been increasing throughout the board. So older folks, richer, high net worth individuals can simply refinance their current property without selling it as well. Take that money, lend it to their sons, their daughters, their friends, their cousins, what have you, relatives, and the cycle, the demand actually increases even more because they're able to cash out on that. Third thing, right? During COVID, when share prices have dropped, a lot of people sold off their holdings in their shares, in their bonds, in their ILP, right? So a lot of them cashed out. You and I, we both cashed out, right? Everybody cashed out. Not necessarily plowed everything back in. And those who plowed everything back in actually gained massive amounts of money as well, which they then now want to take out and invest some of it in property because they see property as a more stable investment in Singapore. So Singaporeans actually have a lot of cash, a lot of ways of getting cash as well to facilitate this cycle even further. So short-term wise, the demand is really able to support that increase in prices due to the supply material shortage, as mentioned in episode 1, right? So episode 1 talk about how prices are increasing because costs increase. But can the market actually pay for it? Turns out it can. Short term, it can, no problem, right? And this cycle will continue going on until when? I think that this cycle barely started in July 2020. It can last easily for another 5 years. 4 years, 5 years in total, simply because developers are now given 5 years to finish selling off a project before punitive taxes are imposed on them. So for 2020, it's July 2020 is really just year number 1 for them. Right now we're in September 2021, about 1 year and 2 months. The whole cycle can easily last for another 3-4 years, right? So do you want to worry about what you can afford in 2025, waiting for the dip to happen? Or would you rather be sitting on your massive gains then? So that's really the question. I would like to thank you for your time in watching episode 2. Next episode, I'll be sharing with you how the economic recovery in Singapore can sustain this particular demand. And as such, the prices could continue going on for the next 3-4 years, right? In particular, I will share with you the policies of the government, the way the economy is growing. And once again, thank you for watching, tuning in today. Please remember to like and subscribe. Feel free to post any questions you have in the comments or contact me via any of my links below. Thank you.